The road to Black Hollow wound like a living, twisted serpent, beneath a sky heavy with secrets. As midnight crept in, a veil of fog swallowed the crumbling sign welcoming travelers to a town that time and hope had long forgotten. Evelyn Carter gripped the steering wheel of her aging car, her eyes locked on the flickering neon light of a diner that promised both solace and hidden truths. Every mile she traveled through the silent, oppressive wilderness echoed with the whispers of past tragedies and the burden of unspoken warnings. It was as if the night itself were conspiring to pull her deeper into the heart of mystery, a mystery that would test not only her courage, but the very core of her being. The dense forest on either side of the road loomed like ancient guardians, their gnarled branches reaching out as though desperate to ensnare unwary souls. Shadows danced in, the corners of her vision, merging reality with the faint echo of legends and nightmares. In that moment, the chill of isolation and the haunting call of fate collided, setting her pulse racing with anticipation and dread. The diner's neon sign buzzed erratically, its light casting eerie patterns on the cracked pavement. Stepping inside, Evelyn was greeted by an overwhelming mix of stale coffee, rusted metal, and an undercurrent of despair that clung to every surface. The few patrons, weathered by years of silent suffering, barely glanced up as she took her seat. Their eyes, though hidden behind the veil of weariness, spoke volumes of the town's unspoken terror, a terror that stretched far beyond the realm of mundane human troubles. It was a terror steeped in ancient secrets and the blood of forgotten promises. In that charged silence, a presence stirred. The door creaked open, and a man entered, whose very aura seemed to command the darkness. His eyes, a piercing icy blue, locked onto hers with a gaze that was both forewarning and invitation. In his measured steps and silent determination, Evelyn recognized the unmistakable signature of something otherworldly, a force that had walked the fine line between human and beast. The stranger's very presence transformed the air, thickening it with tension and unspoken peril. He was Ronan, a name whispered in hushed tones among the fearful locals, and his arrival marked a turning point in the fragile calm of that desolate evening. Their eyes met, and in that fleeting moment, a collision of fates unfolded. Ronan's gaze, laden with both protective instinct and a profound inner torment, conveyed the weight of unspoken truths. His lips parted to deliver a warning that seemed to resonate not just in the silence of the diner, but deep within the recesses of Evelyn's soul. "You shouldn't be here," he murmured, his voice low and laced with the gravitas of 1,000 unsaid words. There was an undeniable magnetism in his tone, a blend of caution and desire that pulled her in despite her better judgment. Evelyn felt the stirrings of an internal battle, her logical mind screaming for retreat while her heart, ignited by an inexplicable connection, urged her to remain. Every fiber of her being seemed to vibrate with the intensity of the moment, caught between the lure of forbidden knowledge and the instinct to flee from the dangerous unknown. As Ronan's eyes bore into hers, she sensed the hidden tempest within. Him. A conflict between duty and desire, between a yearning to protect and a burden of relentless secrets. In that charged silence, their fates intertwined like the tangled roots of the ancient trees outside. Outside the diner's fogged windows, the night deepened its mystery. A soft, rhythmic tapping of rain against the glass became the only counterpoint to their standoff, a subtle reminder that nature, too, was an unwilling participant in this unfolding drama. The world outside seemed to hold its breath, as if aware that this was no ordinary encounter, but a convergence of destinies marked by the cosmic pull of forces beyond human understanding. Evelyn's mind raced, piecing together fragments of overheard whispers and fragmented memories of local lore. The town of Black Hollow was no ordinary place. It was a nexus of paranormal forces, where the boundaries between man and myth blurred beneath the weight of destiny. Her heart hammered in her chest as she contemplated the implications of Ronan's warning. Was he merely a harbinger of doom, or was he the guardian of secrets that could unravel the very fabric of the world she thought she knew? The silence between them stretched taut, laden with the promise of revelations and the threat of irreversible change. Each second ticked by like the slow descent of a guillotine blade, inching closer to a moment of truth that would either shatter her carefully constructed reality or bind her irrevocably to a destiny she had long resisted. With a final charged look that bridged the gap between caution and undeniable attraction, Ronan turned away, leaving behind a trail of lingering questions and a palpable sense of foreboding. In that transient parting, Evelyn felt as though the ground beneath her had shifted, revealing a chasm of secrets waiting to be explored. The air was thick with the residue of ancient magic and the promise of danger. A dangerous allure that beckoned her deeper into the unknown corridors of Black Hollow. As the din of the diner faded into the background and the spectral images of the past and future converged in her mind, Evelyn realized that this was just the beginning. The isolation of Black Hollow, the haunting echoes of lost souls, and the enigmatic pull of a man who straddled two worlds all coalesced into a single, unyielding truth. Some mysteries, once unveiled, could never be ignored. In that moment of introspection, the dichotomy of fear and fascination merged into one undeniable, transformative force, a force that would compel her to follow the twisted, fog-shrouded path ahead, regardless of the personal cost. In that fateful night, beneath the weight of destiny and the watchful eyes of unseen forces, Evelyn Carter stood on the precipice of a life-altering journey. The flickering neon light, the murmurs of the downtrodden, and the cryptic warning of Ronan all served as harbingers of a story that would soon unravel into a tapestry of love, betrayal, and supernatural conflict. And as the darkness closed in, enveloping her in its mysterious embrace, she knew that the battle within her was only beginning, an internal war between logic and passion, between the desire to escape and the magnetic pull of fate. Evelyn stepped into the modest diner as if crossing an invisible threshold, a portal between the mundane world and a hidden realm of secrets. The establishment, frozen in time to the 1950s, was bathed in the flickering glow of a faded neon sign. Its light painted uneven patches of warmth and shadow over worn red vinyl booths, and formica tables scarred by decades of whispered confessions and lingering memories. A haze of burnt coffee and stale cigarette smoke hung in the air, each breath a reminder of the weight of history and sorrow that seemed to seep from every corner of Black Hollow. At a counter polished smooth by countless hands, Sandy, a weary waitress with tired eyes and a name tag barely clinging to its fabric, moved with a resigned efficiency. Her movements were measured and slow, as though every gesture was burdened by a secret she dared not reveal. As Evelyn approached, Sandy offered a small nod, her gaze momentarily lingering on the stranger before her before darting away, as if afraid that curiosity might lead to unwanted truths. In the background, a few old men huddled in a shadowed corner, their faces lined with years of silent suffering. Their low murmurs and furtive glances carried an unspoken warning. Don't ask too many questions. Their whispers, barely audible over the low hum of the diner's old jukebox playing scratchy tunes, seemed to caution Evelyn against probing too deeply into the mysteries that lay beneath the town's unassuming facade. The diner's atmosphere was paradoxical. On one hand, it exuded the nostalgic charm of simpler times, a place where life was defined by predictable routines and small-town camaraderie. On the other hand, an undercurrent of tension and dread pulsed quietly in the background. Every creak of the worn wooden floor, every flicker of the neon sign, hinted at a reality far more sinister than the diner's outward appearance suggested. Evelyn couldn't shake the impression that the people here were living with a constant, unspoken fear. A fear rooted in events too horrific to discuss openly. While she waited for her order of coffee, which arrived with a bitter aroma of charred beans and old secrets, Evelyn's senses were on high alert. A regular patron at the diner, A grizzled man with deeply set eyes and a voice roughened by years of unspoken sorrow leaned in as if to share a warning. "Don't go asking too many questions around here," he muttered, barely above a whisper, before returning his attention to the steaming cup in his hand. His words, simple yet laden with foreboding, sent a shiver down her spine. Throughout the room, snippets of conversation floated in the air, disjointed phrases about wolves and vanished souls, murmurs of sightings in the dark, and warnings about the woods beyond the town. Each utterance was a small puzzle piece, hinting at the darker underbelly of Black Hollow. The locals, though outwardly reserved, were bound by an unspoken pact of silence, protecting each other, and perhaps themselves, from the terror that lay hidden in the shadows. It was as if they collectively knew that certain truths were too dangerous to be fully unveiled. Outside the diner's grimy windows, the night deepened, and the world beyond the glass took on an almost otherworldly quality. The parking lot was desolate, with only a few cars scattered like lonely islands amid a sea of darkness. The dim streetlights cast long, distorted shadows, and a cold wind whispered secrets as it skimmed past the building, carrying with it the faint, haunting echo of wolf howls, a sound that stirred memories of local legends and unspoken fears. Evelyn's mind raced as she pieced together the fragments of overheard conversations. There were stories, she gathered, of savage wolf attacks that left the local residents trembling and mourning in silence. Some spoke of missing people, their fates obscured by the relentless grip of the wilderness. These were not mere tales spun by an overactive imagination. They were accounts laced with terror and sorrow, passed down through generations as both warning and lament. The diner, with its humble, almost nostalgic setting, stood in stark contrast to the ominous tales that circulated among its patrons. The juxtaposition was jarring. Here was a slice of Americana, a relic of a bygone era, yet beneath its comforting veneer lurked an undercurrent of darkness. A reminder that appearances can be deceiving, and that even the most unassuming places can harbor secrets of unimaginable horror. As Evelyn sipped her bitter coffee, she felt a growing determination mingled with apprehension. The unsettling ambiance, the wary glances of the locals, and the cryptic warnings all converged into a single, inescapable thought. Black Hollow was a town that thrived on secrets. Every creak in the floorboard, every muted conversation, was a testament to a history steeped in mystery and marked by inexplicable occurrences. The very air in the diner seemed heavy with untold stories of lost loved ones, of curses unbroken, and of a nature so wild and relentless that it defied explanation. The weight of these mysteries pressed upon Evelyn, igniting within her an insatiable curiosity. This wasn't just another assignment, it was a journey into a realm where the boundaries between myth and reality blurred, where the familiar could quickly transform into the uncanny. In that moment, as she sat amidst the murmurs and muted glances, she vowed to unravel the threads of the enigma that was Black Hollow. She would dig deep, question every hushed whisper, and confront the darkness that lurked just beneath the surface of this seemingly quaint town. But even as the resolve set in, a lingering thought reminded her of the risks involved. In Black Hollow, the truth was a double-edged sword, a revelation that could set one free or plunge them into the depths of despair. Yet, with every beat of her racing heart, the allure of uncovering the forbidden grew stronger. There was beauty in the danger, a strange poetry in the fear, and a promise of transformation for those brave enough to face it. In that dim, smoke-filled diner, amid the soft clatter of utensils and the murmured warnings of its patrons, Evelyn felt the stirring of destiny. The town's facade of normalcy had been shattered by the undercurrents of secrets and shadows, and she was about to step into a world where every revelation came with a price. Black Hollow, with its sleepy charm and haunting mysteries, had ensnared her, setting her on a collision course with fate. A fate that would test her courage, unravel her deepest fears, and ultimately redefine her understanding of love, loss, and the supernatural. Ronan entered the diner as if he'd stepped out of a different era, a silent force that seemed to command the very air around him. His presence was magnetic, radiating an alpha confidence that both intimidated and fascinated those who glanced his way. Under the dim glow of the flickering neon light, his rugged features were accentuated by the sharp shadows, revealing a face that was both dangerously handsome and eerily inscrutable. His dark hair, unruly and slightly damp from the night's chill, fell in casual disarray around a strong jawline dusted with a rough stubble. Yet it was his eyes that truly captivated. Their icy blue depths held secrets as old as the night itself, a glacial intensity that hinted at untold stories and a hidden world lurking beneath a veneer of stoicism. Evelyn, still lingering in the shadows of the diner, couldn't tear her gaze away from him. Every instinct in her whispered that this man was far more than he appeared. A guardian of forbidden knowledge, or perhaps a harbinger of danger. When he moved toward the counter, the murmur of conversations faded into a heavy silence. For a heartbeat, the entire diner seemed to hold its breath as if awaiting the unfolding of an ancient tale. As Ronan took a seat at the far end of the counter, his eyes briefly met Evelyn's. In that instant, an electric current of unspoken understanding passed between them, a silent acknowledgement of fate. His gaze was as cold as winter ice yet, sparked with an intensity that belied his calm exterior. It was as though he could see right through the layers of pretense to the very essence of her soul. Evelyn's heart pounded with a mix of trepidation and an inexplicable pull. She could feel something lurking at the edges of her mind, a presence that mirrored the wild, untamed spirit of the wolf, a spirit that seemed to resonate in Ronan's very being. Unsure if she was drawn by curiosity or by a deeper, predestined bond, she mustered the courage to break the silence. "Are you new in town?" she ventured softly, her voice barely a whisper amid the subdued din of the establishment. Ronan's eyes flickered with a brief glimmer of surprise before settling into their characteristic chill. He didn't answer immediately, instead allowing the silence to stretch taut between them. Finally, he spoke in a low, measured tone that carried both a warning and an invitation. "Not exactly new, but you shouldn't be here if you're looking for answers." The words, simple yet laden with meaning, sent shivers down Evelyn's spine. There was an undeniable tension in his statement, a warning wrapped in layers of concern and an undercurrent of something far more intimate. His tone hinted at a knowledge of forces beyond ordinary understanding, and as he spoke, his eyes remained fixed on hers, as if trying to etch her into memory. For a moment, the world outside the diner's walls ceased to exist. The murmur of other patrons, the clatter of cutlery, and the steady drip of rain against the window all faded away, leaving only the charged silence between them. Evelyn felt an odd mixture of vulnerability and exhilaration. The mere act of exchanging glances with Ronan felt like a defiant step into the unknown, a dance on the razor's edge of fate. "You talk as if you've seen things." "Dangerous things," she replied, her voice trembling slightly, betraying the calm she tried so desperately to project. Ronan's expression tightened imperceptibly, his jaw set in a way that spoke of internal battles fought in the silence of the night. "I've seen enough to know that some truths are best left untouched," he murmured, his tone hinting at both regret and a fierce protective instinct. "Curiosity can be a dangerous trait, Evelyn." At the mention of her name, a spark of recognition ignited in his gaze, a silent acknowledgement of the unspoken bond forming between them. In that moment, Evelyn's thoughts raced. Who was this enigmatic man who both cautioned and captivated her? What darkness did he wrestle with? And how was it that his warning resonated so deeply with her own buried fears and desires? Inside, her mind whirled with conflicting emotions, a potent blend of attraction, fear, and a stubborn defiance that urged her to uncover the secrets behind those icy eyes. She could sense that beneath Ronan's cool exterior lay a turbulent storm of emotions, memories, and a duty to protect something sacred, even if it meant hiding truths that could shatter her world. Ronan's eyes softened momentarily, as if battling the urge to retreat behind a wall of solitude. Yet, despite his stern warning, there was a glimmer of something tender, a vulnerability that he fought hard to conceal. "I know you're here for more than just a cup of coffee, aren't you?" he said quietly, his words slicing through the charged atmosphere like a whispered confession. "There's a darkness in Black Hollow that's swallowing people whole. And sometimes the price of knowing is more than you can bear." Each word he spoke was deliberate, a careful balance of caution and desire. The duality of his nature, both feral and fiercely protective, was unmistakable. His voice, a mix of gravel and silk, sent a thrill through her, igniting a dangerous fascination that left her simultaneously repelled and irresistibly drawn to him. For Evelyn, the encounter with Ronan was a collision of destiny and danger, a meeting of souls on the precipice of revelation. The air between them vibrated with the tension of unspoken promises and the weight of looming threats. She could feel the magnetic pull of fate tightening around her heart, urging her to step further into a world where every shadow held a secret, and every glance could be the start of something irreversible. Ronan, too, was caught in the gravity of their encounter. While his tone warned her to keep her distance, his eyes betrayed a deep-seated need to shield her from the encroaching darkness, a darkness that he had seen consume lives and shatter hearts. His protective instinct was palpable, a silent promise that he would stand guard against the horrors lurking in the periphery, even as he wrestled with his own inner demons. In that charged moment, as the soft clink of dishes and the murmurs of caution from the other patrons served as a backdrop, Evelyn realized that this was no ordinary meeting. It was the spark of a fated connection, one that promised both salvation and sacrifice. The palpable tension, woven from the threads of mystery and raw, unyielding desire, set the stage for a story that was destined to unravel into chaos and beauty in equal measure. With every stolen glance and every measured word, the diner transformed into a stage where destiny played out in real time. The interplay of light and shadow on Ronan's face, the depth of his icy gaze, and the hesitant yet determined curiosity in Evelyn's eyes, all spoke of a bond that was written in the stars, an inevitable collision of two souls drawn together by forces beyond their control. And so, in that small, smoke-filled haven of a 1950s diner, amid whispered warnings and the subtle dance of fated mates, a new chapter began, a chapter of danger, desire, and a shared destiny that would force them both to confront the darkness, both, within and around them. The moment was fleeting, yet it resonated with an intensity that promised that nothing would ever be the same again. Evelyn returned to her small rented cabin that night, with a notebook bursting at the seams, a repository for every cryptic clue she'd gathered. The dim light of her desk lamp illuminated crumpled pages of old newspaper clippings, faded photographs, and handwritten notes scrawled in haste. Every headline screamed of inexplicable wolf attacks and mysterious disappearances, yet the details were always curiously incomplete, as if important pieces of the puzzle were deliberately left out. The more she read, the more she realized that Black Hollow was a town steeped in lore and shadow, where reality seemed to blur with the fantastical. Determined to uncover the truth, Evelyn began her investigation with meticulous care. By day, she combed through the local archives at the town's modest library, where brittle records whispered of ancient legends and warnings. One article recounted a sighting of a massive, spectral wolf, larger than any natural creature, with eyes that burned like embers against the dark canvas of the forest. Another piece described how entire families vanished overnight, leaving behind only scattered belongings and a lingering sense of dread. Each account was marred by conflicting details. The time of the attacks shifted inexplicably, and the victims' identities were sometimes distorted in the retelling. With every headline, Evelyn's curiosity grew, fueled by the palpable undercurrent of fear that had woven itself into the fabric of Black Hollow's history. Late one afternoon, as heavy clouds began to smother the sky, Evelyn ventured out into the town's winding streets. She approached a group of locals huddled near an old weather-beaten water pump. Their eyes were guarded, their voices low and cautious. "Don't go asking too many questions," one grumbled as if reciting a well-worn mantra. "Some truths are best left buried in the past." Their warning did little to dissuade her. In fact, it only sharpened her resolve. In the flickering glow of a failing streetlight, she scribbled down their words and the subtle tremor of their fear, knowing that their reluctance spoke louder than any explicit confession. Back at her cabin, Evelyn pored over her collected evidence. The soft patter of rain against her window created a somber symphony as she arranged her notes in chronological order. Between the lines of newspaper articles and the disjointed eyewitness testimonies, she began to notice an eerie pattern. The Mao attacks were not random acts of violence but seemed orchestrated by a force beyond human comprehension. There were recurring references to the howl that chilled the soul and shadows that moved with intent. These phrases, repeated in hushed whispers among the town's elders, hinted at an ancient curse or perhaps an otherworldly presence lurking just beyond the periphery of human understanding. The legends of Black Hollow were as vivid as they were terrifying. Local folklore told of giant, spectral wolves that roamed the surrounding forests, creatures that were neither entirely beast nor entirely man. These beings were said to possess the uncanny ability to shift form under the full moon, a transformation that was both mesmerizing and horrifying. According to one weathered tale, the wolves were once guardians of the land, charged with protecting an ancient secret buried deep within the earth. But over time, greed and betrayal twisted their purpose, condemning them to wander as cursed creatures, bound to a cycle of violence and despair. The stories spoke of a wolf spirit that could possess an unsuspecting soul, merging its essence with that of a human to create a fated, unbreakable bond, a connection that was as much a blessing as it was a curse. As dusk fell and night enveloped the town, Evelyn decided to pay a visit to an elderly resident known simply as Old Gus, a man rumored to have witnessed things that defied logic. Gus lived in a creaking, ivy-clad house at the edge of town where the forest whispered secrets through its broken windows. Over a mug of lukewarm coffee, he recounted tales of nights when the forest came alive with the sound of distant howls, when the very air vibrated with the presence of something otherworldly. "The wolves ain't just animals, darlin'," he rasped, his eyes clouded with memories of terror and wonder. "They're the keepers of Black Hollow's soul, and when they howl, it ain't just for the moon. It's for a promise long." Broken. Gus's words resonated with Evelyn, each syllable adding another layer of mystery to the tapestry of legends she was beginning to unravel. As he spoke, the sound of wind rustling through ancient trees outside seemed to echo his every word, lending an almost spectral quality to his narrative. The night grew deeper, and with it, the stories of giant wolves and shapeshifters began to meld with the reality she was investigating. It was as if the very essence of the forest was seeping into her consciousness, urging her to see beyond the veil of the ordinary. In that quiet, rain-soaked night, surrounded by flickering lamplight and the murmur of old secrets, Evelyn felt a profound shift within herself. The line between myth and reality blurred, replaced by a growing awareness that the events in Black Hollow were not mere coincidences or relics of a bygone era. Instead, they were active forces at play, forces that demanded recognition, that whispered warnings on every gust of wind, that left a trail of unanswered questions in their wake. Every creak of the cabin's wooden floor, every distant howl carried on the breeze, reinforced her conviction that something supernatural was at work. Evelyn's heart pounded with the thrill of discovery and the weight of impending doom. She knew that to truly understand the mysteries of Black Hollow, she would have to risk delving deeper into a world where every shadow concealed a secret, and every whisper hinted at an ancient, restless power. As she closed her notebook and stared out into the obsidian night, the sound of a solitary wolf's howl broke the silence, long, mournful, and full of warning. In that single, soul-stirring cry, Evelyn understood that her journey was only just beginning. The truth lay hidden in the interplay of light and darkness, in the secrets etched into the very soil of Black Hollow, and in the legends that refused to fade with time. And with that realization, a resolve as deep and mysterious as the night itself took root in her heart, compelling her to follow the trail of clues wherever they might lead, even if it meant venturing into the heart of a darkness that could change everything. The old cabin, perched at the edge of Black Hollow's decaying frontier, exuded an eerie sense of anticipation, as if it had been waiting for someone, or something, to awaken its long-dormant secrets. The weathered wooden walls, scarred by time and neglect, held echoes of the past, whispering stories of forgotten souls and unspoken tragedies. Every creak of the ancient floorboards, every groan of the settling structure, added to the ominous symphony of the night. In the dim light of a single, flickering lamp, Evelyn's small sanctuary appeared more like a mausoleum than a refuge, a place where shadows clung to every surface, and the air was thick with the weight of unsaid words. Inside, the cabin was a study in faded grandeur and melancholic decay. The once warm hues of the parlor had surrendered to muted grays and deep browns. Faded, threadbare drapes shuddered at the slightest draught, while a dusty, time-worn sofa sat huddled against the wall as if trying to hide from prying eyes. A cracked mirror above a creaking mantelpiece reflected a distorted image of the room, a constant reminder of the cabin's fractured past. Each piece of furniture, every relic left behind, bore silent testimony to lives once lived, secrets once shared, and memories that refused to fade with time. As night deepened, the cabin transformed under the watchful gaze of a moon shrouded by turbulent clouds. The stillness of the interior was suddenly punctuated by unexplained sounds, a faint tapping at the window, the soft rustle of what might have been an unseen visitor gliding along the wall, and the persistent, distant howl of a wolf echoing through the dense forest beyond. These noises, subtle yet insistent, created a pervasive sense of unease that permeated every corner of the cabin. Evelyn sat alone at a rickety wooden table near the window, a cup of lukewarm tea trembling in her grasp. The expansive window, though partially obscured by dust and grime, provided a view into the wild, unkempt darkness of the surrounding forest. Outside, the night was alive with shifting shadows and ghostly silhouettes. Branches swayed with an almost predatory grace, their movements synchronized with the occasional gust of wind that sent chills cascading down her spine. The distant sound of a wolf's mournful cry reverberated through the still air, a haunting melody that stirred both dread and fascination within her. In that charged atmosphere, the cabin seemed to breathe along with her. The darkened corners of the room pulsed with the energy of long-forgotten memories, and the crevices in the walls whispered of hidden secrets yearning to be revealed. Evelyn could almost feel the eyes of the past, watching, judging, and waiting. The sensation was not entirely malevolent. It was as though the very spirit of the cabin, with all its sorrow and longing, reached out in a silent plea for acknowledgement. This eerie communion with the unseen filled her with a bittersweet mix of loneliness and kinship. Her thoughts wandered to the stories she had pieced together earlier, of ancient curses, spectral wolves, and the unfathomable bond between the human and the supernatural. In that moment, the cabin became a nexus between the tangible world and the realm of myth and legend. The isolation that had once filled her with a sense of vulnerability now evolved into a profound connection with the inexplicable forces that hovered at the periphery of her perception. The darkness outside was not merely an absence of light, but a living tapestry, woven with threads of mystery and the remnants of dreams long shattered. Every sound and movement in the night heightened her awareness. The soft creak of a loose floorboard seemed to mimic the measured steps of an intruder, while the gentle rustling of leaves outside hinted at a presence that was both transient and persistent. Evelyn's pulse quickened as she strained to discern between the natural and the supernatural. Was it merely the wind, or had a shadow just passed across the glass? The boundary between reality and illusion blurred, drawing her deeper into a state of introspection and apprehension. In the solitude of her cabin, the dichotomy of her emotions became starkly apparent. On one hand, there was an overwhelming loneliness, a profound isolation that threatened to consume her spirit. On the other, there was an inexplicable yearning, a magnetic pull towards the hidden world that lay just beyond the veil of the ordinary. It was a paradoxical feeling, as if she were destined to unravel the very mysteries that had haunted Black Hollow for generations. The more she listened, the more she felt that she was not alone in her struggle. That somewhere in the shifting silhouettes outside, a kindred force, powerful, enigmatic, and relentless, was silently observing her every move. The interplay of light and shadow in the cabin painted a cinematic picture of suspense and hidden beauty. The sparse illumination from the lamp cast long, distorted shapes against the walls, creating a gallery of phantoms that danced in rhythm with the quivering flames. The interplay of these elements lent an almost hypnotic quality to the space, inviting Evelyn to delve further into the labyrinth of her own thoughts. The cabin, in its silent vigil, became a character in its own right, mysterious, layered, and brimming with untold stories. With every passing minute, the night deepened its hold on her, drawing her into a reverie where every creak, every whisper, was a clue to a larger, more intricate puzzle. The uncertainty of the moment was both a curse and a calling. Though fear gnawed at the edges of her resolve, it was tempered by a resolute determination to understand the inexplicable. The enigma of Black Hollow was no longer confined to the wild forest or the distant howl of a wolf. It had seeped into the very walls of her cabin, into the marrow of her bones. In that silent, suspenseful hour, Evelyn found herself at a crossroads. The physical isolation of the cabin was a mirror to the emotional isolation that had defined her existence for so long. Yet, amid the oppressive darkness, a spark of defiant hope flickered. Perhaps it was the promise of uncovering something profoundly transformative, a secret that could bridge the chasm between the known and the unknown. Or maybe it was the realization that in embracing the mysteries of the supernatural, she might finally come to terms with the mysteries of her own heart. As the night stretched on, and the echoes of unseen presences mingled with the rustling of ancient trees outside, Evelyn understood that this was a pivotal moment, a threshold where fear and destiny converged. The cabin, with its weathered walls and haunting ambiance, was no longer just a shelter from the storm. It had become the gateway to a realm of secrets and supernatural wonders that defied explanation. And in that moment of profound solitude, as the darkness whispered its ancient lullabies, she resolved to follow its call, even if it led her into the very heart of mystery itself. Evelyn's investigation led her down a winding path from the isolated cabin into the heart of Black Hollow, a town where the lines between everyday life and the supernatural were blurred beyond recognition. Determined to uncover the truth, she found herself standing before the modest, weathered office of Sheriff Hank Mallister. The building, a relic of a bygone era, stood as a stubborn bastion of order amid the creeping chaos of mysteries that whispered through the streets. Its faded sign and creaking door hinted at a time when people believed in clear-cut answers. But now, even the sheriff's office exuded an unsettling aura of resignation and guarded secrecy. Inside, the air was thick with a mix of stale tobacco and unspoken fears. Sheriff Mallister, a heavy-set man with a lined face that had seen many years of hardship, sat behind a cluttered desk piled high with paperwork and yellowed files. His eyes, though tired, held a glint of stern authority, as if they carried the weight of countless unsolved cases. Yet beneath that veneer of control, there was an unspoken tension, a silent acknowledgement that something inexplicable lurked beneath the surface of Black Hollow. Evelyn approached the desk cautiously, her notebook clutched tightly in her hand. "Sheriff Mallister," she began, her voice steady despite the unease that churned inside her. "I've been looking into these recent incidents, these attacks, these disappearances. I need to understand what's really happening here." Sheriff's eyes narrowed slightly as he regarded her. "Miss Carter," he replied in a low, measured tone, "some things in this town are best left alone." His words, delivered with a measured calm that bordered on admonition, resonated with an air of warning. There was a pause, heavy and pregnant, with unsaid meaning, before he continued, "You know as well as I do that asking too many questions can stir up trouble." As the conversation unfolded, it became evident that the sheriff and his colleagues were caught in a web of conflicting loyalties. On one hand, they were sworn to uphold the law and provide reassurance to a frightened community. On the other, they harbored secrets of their own, secrets that made them reluctant to fully acknowledge the supernatural forces at work. Every answer they provided was cloaked in vagueness, each word a careful balancing act between duty and self-preservation. The subtle deflections and quick changes of subject were as telling as any direct admission, leaving Evelyn with a lingering sense that the official narrative was only a facade. Leaving the sheriff's office, Evelyn was met by a palpable tension that seemed to seep into the very marrow of Black Hollow. On the streets, whispers floated on the cool evening air. Neighbors exchanged wary glances, their voices dropping to hushed murmurs as they passed by one another. "Keep your head down," one old man warned softly, his eyes darting nervously as if fearful of being overheard. "There are things you don't want to know about," said another, his tone laced with a mix of resignation and dread. These fragments of conversation, carried on the wind, painted a picture of a community on edge. A community that lived under a constant shroud of unspoken terror. For Evelyn, the experience was disconcerting. The more she delved into the town's history, the more she sensed an inexplicable duality, a stark contrast between the orderly, rational facade of the human world and the elusive magnetic pull of the supernatural. The sheriff's evasiveness, the quiet warnings of the locals, and the pervasive feeling of being observed all converged into a disquieting symphony. It was as if the entire town was participating in a silent conspiracy, a collective pact to ignore the darker truths that lay beneath the surface of everyday life. That night, as Evelyn walked back toward her cabin under a sky heavy with secrets, the atmosphere around her pulsed with a surreal intensity. Streetlights cast long, wavering shadows on cracked sidewalks, and the distant sound of a dog's mournful howl mingled with the rustle of leaves stirred by an unseen force. The normalcy of human routines was overlaid with a haunting cadence, a reminder that beyond the veneer of everyday order, there existed a realm of enigmas and ancient powers. In the solitude of her mind, Evelyn wrestled with a tumult of emotions. Her logical side insisted that there must be a rational explanation for the strange occurrences, that the town's peculiar behavior could be chalked up to superstition and the collective anxiety of a small community. Yet, the allure of the unknown tugged at her with relentless insistence. Every suppressed whisper, every furtive glance, and every carefully avoided detail spoke of something beyond the ordinary, a hidden world that defied explanation and beckoned her deeper into its mysteries. As she turned down a narrow, dimly lit alley leading back to her cabin, Evelyn's thoughts swirled with conflicting images. The cold, rational explanations of a seasoned investigator clashed with the seductive, eerie pull of folklore and myth. It was in that clash, a tension between reason and the inexplicable, that the true heart of Black Hollow beat. The Détenouin was a living paradox, a place where the everyday met the extraordinary, and where every unanswered question festered like a secret waiting to be revealed. In that moment, standing at the threshold between the safety of what she knew and the terrifying promise of what lay hidden, Evelyn felt a surge of resolve. She realized that the boundary between the human and the supernatural was not as clear-cut as she had once believed. Instead, it was a fragile, shifting line, blurred by fear, desire, and the inexorable pull of destiny. And in that blurred space, she sensed, lay the key to understanding not only the mysteries of Black Hollow, but perhaps the deepest truths of her own soul. With the night stretching endlessly before her and the silent, watchful eyes of the town upon her, Evelyn pressed on. Every step was a defiant act of courage, a declaration that she would not be deterred by the elusive, haunting forces that sought to keep their secrets hidden. The tension in the air, the whispered warnings, and the enigmatic deflections of those who claimed to represent order all served as a prelude to the unfolding drama, a drama in which she was now inextricably entwined, destined to confront the darkness both within and beyond. In the hushed moments following the town's eerie revelations, the connection between Evelyn and Ronan began to weave itself like a hidden thread in the fabric of fate. It started with subtle, almost imperceptible exchanges. Fleeting glances across a room charged with unspoken promise, and terse words delivered in a low, gravelly tone that reverberated deep within her chest. One evening, as the soft luminescence of a waning moon filtered through the diner's smudged windows, their eyes met in a way that transcended the need for explanation. In that charged silence, the very air seemed to pulse with an intensity that hinted at a bond older than time itself, a mating bond destined to bridge the realms of the natural and the supernatural. Evelyn found herself inexplicably drawn to Ronan's presence, as if a magnetic force were pulling her closer despite the rational part of her mind screaming caution. Every glance exchanged between them was laden with meaning. His eyes, dark and icy, held the secrets of countless forgotten nights, while her own reflected a quiet determination mixed with vulnerability. Their conversation, sparse and deliberate, became a silent dance of emotions. "There's something in you that calls to me," Ronan once murmured, his voice barely rising above the ambient hum of the diner. His words, though few, echoed with the weight of destiny, and Evelyn felt her heart quicken as if recognizing an old refrain. As days passed, these encounters grew more charged, each meeting further unraveling the tapestry of their intertwined fates. In the soft light of twilight, when the shadows stretched long and the world seemed to hold its breath, they would find themselves alone in quiet corners of the town. In those moments, a fragile intimacy blossomed. Ronan's hand would brush against hers, a touch so fleeting yet searing with an unspoken promise. And in the quiet aftermath, the rhythm of their heartbeats seemed to sink in a silent chorus that only they could hear. Inside, Evelyn battled an intense inner conflict. Her rational mind urged her to see Ronan as a mystery, best left unsolved, a dangerous relic of a world she did not understand. Yet, there was an undeniable pull in her soul, a yearning that defied logic. In the solitude of her cabin, she replayed their encounters over and over, each memory mingling with the haunting allure of Black Hollow's supernatural aura. The inexplicable sensation of being known, of being recognized not just for who she was but for what she might become, was both terrifying and irresistibly alluring. It was as if the very essence of her being resonated with a force that transcended the boundaries of mortal understanding, a force that Ronan seemed to embody. Ronan, too, struggled with the duality of his existence. In his guarded demeanor lay the scars of centuries of solitude, a history marked by the weight of ancient curses and the relentless pull of a predestined union. His voice, often a blend of caution and tender urgency, hinted at the hidden truth of their connection. "Our souls, they're bound by something that goes beyond this life," he once confided during a rare, unguarded moment beneath the canopy of an overgrown park, where the night air carried whispers of forgotten legends. His admission, soft yet resolute, sent shivers down Evelyn's spine, stirring a tempest of emotions that clashed with her desire for independence. Every stolen moment together was infused with a palpable electricity, an almost tangible current that surged between them. The cinema of their shared silence played out against a backdrop of shifting shadows and soft, ambient light. In one memory, Evelyn recalled sitting beside Ronan on a weathered park bench, the silver glow of moonlight, highlighting the contours of his face as he watched her with eyes that seemed to search for her very soul. The air around them was thick with unspoken questions and the quiet hum of destiny, as if the universe itself was orchestrating their meeting. It was in these moments that the mating bond began to reveal itself, not as a sudden, overwhelming force, but as a slow, simmering heat that gradually enveloped them both. Yet this budding intimacy was not without its turbulence. Evelyn's mind was a battlefield where logic waged war against the allure of passion. Every time she allowed herself to lean into the connection, a voice of reason would whisper caution, reminding her of the unknown dangers that lurked in the supernatural depths of Black Hollow. The tension between her desire for freedom and the irresistible pull of destiny created a storm of conflicting emotions. She found herself questioning whether surrendering to this bond meant losing a part of herself, or if it was simply the natural evolution of her fate. A merging of two souls meant to navigate a world that was far more enigmatic than she had ever imagined. Visions of light and darkness played out in her mind's eye as she contemplated their future. The soft luminescence of dawn and the inky void of midnight became metaphors for the duality of their connection. In the gentle embrace of twilight, when the world seemed suspended between the tangible and the ethereal, the promise of their bond shone like a beacon. It was as though every heartbeat, every whispered word, and every tender touch was a brushstroke, painting a masterpiece of love and mystery. A masterpiece where the boundaries of time and space dissolved, leaving only the raw, unfiltered truth of two souls destined to be one. In the quiet moments before sleep claimed her, Evelyn would lie awake, listening to the rhythmic cadence of her own breathing mingling with the distant call of the wild. In those solitary hours, the mating bond was not just a concept, but a living, breathing reality, a force that compelled her to step beyond the confines of her understanding and embrace the unknown. And though fear and doubt lingered like shadows on the edges of her mind, she could not deny the profound, magnetic pull that Ronan exerted over her heart. Thus, in the interplay of gentle touches, lingering gazes, and soft-spoken confessions, the fated bond between Evelyn and Ronan began to blossom, a bond that promised not only passion and love, but a journey into the heart of darkness, where every secret, every whispered legend, and every pulse of desire was part of a destiny written in the stars. The quiet intensity of their connection was a testament to the timeless dance between light and shadow, reason and emotion, a dance that would shape their lives and defy the boundaries of the mortal realm. In the dim corridors of Black Hollow's lore, whispers of secrets and hidden betrayals had always swirled like the mist that shrouded its ancient streets. It was here that Evelyn first encountered Lena Hawthorne, a woman whose very presence seemed to command the respect of the unseen forces that haunted the town. Lena moved with an air of quiet authority, her eyes deep and knowing, as if they held the weight of every legend and sorrow that had ever gripped Black Hollow. Dressed in garments that blended timeless elegance with a rugged practicality, she carried herself like a guardian of forgotten truths. Her silvered hair, swept back, in a style that hinted at both grace and defiance, framed a face that was at once inscrutable and mesmerizing. Lena had earned her reputation as the keeper of Black Hollow's secrets. Generations of whispered stories and half-forgotten prophecies converged in her mind. She was the living archive of the town's supernatural history. Over countless years, she had borne witness to the cyclical rise and fall of mystical events, a chronicler of phenomena too inexplicable for the common tongue. When Lena spoke, her voice was soft yet resonant, carrying the cadence of an age-old ballad that both comforted and unsettled. "There are forces here that defy mortal understanding," she confided to Evelyn one fog-laden evening, her tone imbued with a mixture of sorrow and urgency. "The past of Black Hollow is written in blood and moonlight, and its truth is not for the faint of heart." It was during one such conversation that Lena revealed a darker shard of the town's secret, a name that sent a ripple of dread through those who dared to recall it. Elias. Once a respected member of the pack, Elias had been known for his fierce loyalty and formidable strength, but something had shattered his spirit, twisting him into a rogue figure whose very existence now posed a dire threat. Lena's eyes darkened as she recounted the tale. Elias was once like Ronan, she began, her voice trembling with restrained emotion. He was a guardian, a protector of our sacred covenant. But betrayal and a loss of trust fractured his soul. He turned away from the light, embracing a path of destruction and selfish desire. As Lena spoke, the narrative unfolded, like a tragic epic. Elias's fall from grace was not merely the loss of honor, but the corruption of a being once revered. His complicated relationship with Ronan had been the subject of much speculation, a bond that was once forged in mutual respect and shared destiny, now shattered by a betrayal that cut deep into the fabric of the pack. When Elias broke away, Lena murmured, "He took with him a piece of our legacy, a piece that now festers in the darkness, corrupting everything it touches." Her words painted a picture of a man consumed by his own inner demons, a being who had forsaken the code of loyalty that once defined him. The tension within the pack was palpable, a constant undercurrent that spoke of deep fissures and unsaid conflicts. Those who remained loyal to the ancient ways carried the burden of mistrust and sorrow. Among them, Ronan struggled silently with the twin weight of his responsibilities and the guilt of a bond now tainted by Elias's treachery. The once unified force of the pack was now splintered into factions, each marked by suspicion and the ever-present threat of internal strife. Rumors of secret meetings and hushed arguments permeated the air, leaving a trail of unease in their wake. Evelyn, listening intently to Lena's revelations, felt a chill that had little to do with the cool night air. Each word from Lena's lips was a thread, weaving a tapestry of imminent danger and supernatural unrest. As the truth unfurled, before her, the idyllic veneer of Black Hollow began to crumble, revealing a labyrinth of ancient grudges and a dark prophecy waiting to be fulfilled. Lena's voice, steady and somber, carried warnings that resonated deep within Evelyn's soul. "You must tread carefully," Lena cautioned, her gaze piercing. "The secrets of this town have a way of consuming those who are unprepared. There are fissures in the pack, cracks where darkness seeps through. And if you continue to seek the truth, you may find that the very forces you wish to understand will seek to bind you as well." Outside, the natural world seemed to echo her words. The wind howled through the gnarled branches of ancient trees, and in the distance, the mournful cry of a wolf served as a chilling reminder of the supernatural domain that lay just beyond, the fragile boundary of human comprehension. Every rustle of leaves and every shift in the shadows around them was a silent testament to the power struggles that had defined Black Hollow for generations. In that moment, Evelyn's inner world was a turbulent battleground. Her logical mind clamored for rational explanations, insisting that every legend could be debunked by reason. Yet, the raw, emotional intensity of Lena's revelations stirred something primal within her. A yearning to embrace the mystery, to dive headfirst into the darkness, and unearth the hidden truths of her own destiny. The delicate equilibrium between fear and fascination, reason and passion, had never felt more precarious. Each whispered word from Lena, and every haunted echo from the town's past deepened the allure of the supernatural, making it impossible for Evelyn to simply walk away. With the revelation of Elias's treachery and the ensuing discord within the pack, a foreboding sense of impending upheaval settled over Black Hollow. It was as if the delicate balance of power was teetering on the brink of collapse, and any misstep could unleash a cascade of consequences that would ripple through both the human and the supernatural realms. The leak of forbidden information, the subtle warnings among the locals, and the guarded glances exchanged in shadowed corners, all spoke of a world where trust was fragile and alliances were fleeting. Evelyn realized that she was now entangled, in a web of forces far greater than she had ever imagined. A web spun from the threads of ancient prophecy, fractured loyalties, and a relentless struggle for power among beings that defied the natural order. The secrets of Black Hollow, once relegated to whispered folklore, were now emerging as tangible, dangerous realities. And in the midst of this unfolding drama, Lena Hawthorne stood as the enigmatic key to deciphering it all. A beacon of knowledge, amid a storm of betrayal and dark ambition. As the night deepened, and the spectral glow of the moon bathed the town in an ethereal light, Evelyn's resolve solidified. She knew that to navigate the treacherous path ahead, she must confront not only the external dangers of a rogue Elias and a fractured pack, but also the inner tumult that came with embracing a destiny intertwined with the supernatural. The secrets of Black Hollow were laid bare before her, and with each revelation, the stakes grew higher, setting the stage for a climax that promised to upend everything she thought she knew about loyalty, power, and the true nature of the supernatural. Under a bruised sky heavy with foreboding, the confrontation that had long simmered beneath Black Hollow finally erupted in a maelstrom of raw power and feral fury. The abandoned clearing, lit only by the ghostly luminescence of a waning moon, became the arena where Ronan's pack and Elias clashed in a battle destined to shatter the uneasy calm that had reigned over the town for far too long. In an instant, the silence was shattered by a cacophony of guttural growls and the thunderous impact of bodies colliding. The air vibrated with the sound of snapping bones and the resounding clash of teeth against flesh. Elias, a figure twisted by betrayal and dark ambition, lunged forward with a predatory snarl, his eyes burning with malevolence. His movements were unnervingly precise, every strike calculated to wound and maim. Around him, his rogue followers circled like dark shadows, their forms blurring as they shifted between human and wolf in an unholy display of transformation. Ronan stood at the heart of the chaos, his eyes steeled with determination, as he confronted the enemy who had once been one of his own. As the battle raged, he moved with a fluidity that defied mortal limits, a testament to the ancient power that surged within him. In a moment that seemed to slow time itself, Ronan's features contorted as the familiar human guise peeled away, revealing the magnificent, savage form of a wolf. Muscles rippled beneath dark, matted fur as he transformed with a ferocity that sent shivers down the spine of every onlooker. His howl, a primal declaration of defiance, mingled with the unearthly cries of his pack, creating a symphony of rage that shook the very earth. The impact of their collisions was a visceral spectacle. Elias and Ronan met with the force of colliding titans, their bodies entwined in a deadly dance of instinct and fury. Every swipe of a claw, every savage bite, was punctuated by the raw, metallic tang of blood. The clearing became a blur of motion, limbs flailing in a chaotic rhythm, eyes locked in bitter confrontation, and the swift, violent transformation of shapes as each fighter shifted between their human and lupine forms. The scene was cinematic, in its intensity, each moment a freeze frame of unyielding tension, captured in the interplay of harsh shadows and fleeting bursts of silver light. From the sidelines, Evelyn watched in paralyzed awe. Her heart pounded so fiercely that it drowned out every sound except the haunting roars and the rapid staccato thumping of her own pulse. Every fiber of her being was attuned to the battle unfolding before her, a maelstrom of fear, anguish, and an inexplicable, fierce protectiveness for Ronan. In that breathless instant, she felt the full weight of the mating bond that had drawn her into this supernatural maelstrom, a bond that now pulsed like a living, relentless drum in her chest. The scene was as terrifying as it was mesmerizing, each roar of combat and each flash of lupine ferocity etching itself into her memory. Elias, fueled by bitterness and a deep-seated desire for dominion, fought with a reckless abandon that bordered on savagery. His eyes, once a mirror of camaraderie now turned icy with betrayal, were fixed on Ronan with a hatred that burned brighter than any flame. With a ferocious lunge, Elias sank his teeth into Ronan's shoulder, a bite that reverberated through the clearing and sent a shockwave of pain and determination rippling across Ronan's pack. The sound of the clash echoed in the still night, the crunch of bones, the splatter of blood, and the unrelenting chorus of defiant howls. As the battle surged forward in a torrent of raw emotion and primal power, the lighting shifted in tandem with the fury of the combatants. Strobing flashes of lightning illuminated the scene in rapid bursts, turning the clearing into a transient tableau of silver and shadow. Each flash revealed the intricate details of their struggle. The taut muscles of Ronan as he reformed from his lupine form, the wild, unyielding snarl of Elias as he advanced, and the desperate determination etched on the faces of those fighting by Ronan's side. For Evelyn, each moment was a study in contrasts. The cold logic of the human world, laws, order, and reason had long dictated her existence. Yet now, confronted with the ferocity of supernatural power and the visceral, unfiltered rage of beings caught between worlds, she felt the boundaries of that rationality shatter. In that charged atmosphere, every beat of her heart was a reminder of the destiny that now intertwined her fate with Ronan's. The fear she felt was not solely for her own safety, but for the future of a world teetering on the edge of darkness and light. The struggle reached a crescendo as Ronan, now fully returned to his lupine splendor, surged forward with renewed vigor. With a powerful, sweeping strike, he knocked Elias off balance, a momentary lapse that allowed Ronan's pack to press their advantage. The clamor of the battle rose to a fever pitch. Claws raked through the air, growls mingled with guttural roars, and the relentless rhythm of combat pulsed like a war drum through the night. It was as if every force of nature had converged in that clearing, each sound and flash of movement amplifying the collective heartbeat of the supernatural and the mortal alike. Amidst the chaos, Evelyn's eyes never wavered from Ronan. Every agonizing moment, every violent impact, fueled her resolve to witness the truth of this ancient conflict. The sights and sounds seared themselves into her consciousness, the flash of teeth, the spray of blood, and the defiant gleam in Ronan's eyes as he fought to protect not only his pack, but the very essence of the supernatural order that had long governed Black Hollow. In the final, heart-stopping moments of the confrontation, the clearing was bathed in an eerie silence as both sides paused. A brief, suspended moment before the inevitable clash resumed. The tension was so thick it felt as though the air itself might shatter under its pressure, and in that fragile pause, Evelyn understood that the battle was not just a physical struggle, but a collision of destinies, a turning point that would irrevocably bind her to the fate of a world where the natural and the supernatural were forever entwined. Every roar, every collision, every flicker of light told a story of ancient grudges, of broken bonds, and of a relentless pursuit, of redemption that played out beneath a sky stained with the blood of heroes and villains alike. And as the night pressed on, the fierce dance of combat continued, marking a chapter in Black Hollow's history that would be remembered for its raw intensity and the profound, unyielding power of fate. After the echoes of battle had finally faded, a fragile silence fell over the blood-stained clearing. The once raging storm of snarls and violent clashes gave way to a solemn quiet as the pack gathered around the wounded Ronan. His breathing was ragged, and a deep gash along his side oozed crimson in the dim light. Yet even in pain, there was an unmistakable aura of resilience about him, a quiet determination fueled by the unbreakable bond he shared with Evelyn. Evelyn knelt beside him, her hands trembling as she carefully tended to his wounds. The cool, night air, still heavy with the distant calls of nocturnal predators, seemed to recede as a gentle, almost sacred light began to emanate from the space between them. It was as if the very essence of their fated connection had ignited into a radiant flame, casting a warm glow that defied the darkness surrounding them. In that moment, the air shimmered with the promise of healing, both physical and spiritual, a promise that transcended the scars of the night's fierce battle. Ronan's eyes fluttered open as Evelyn's tender touch and soft words seeped into his consciousness. "Stay with me. she whispered, her voice a blend of urgency and tenderness. The intensity of her gaze conveyed more than any spoken vow. It was a silent declaration that their souls were inextricably bound, destined to mend one another's broken parts. Slowly, the primal fury that had defined the battle began to subside, replaced by a quiet reverence for the newfound intimacy that blossomed amidst the ruins. Around them, the members of the pack formed a protective circle, a living testament to loyalty and unspoken understanding. Their low, rhythmic murmurs, punctuated by occasional whimpers of relief, served as a lullaby that soothed the savage remnants of combat. As the pack members helped Ronan to sit up, the energy of the group shifted from one of relentless aggression to one of shared recovery. In the gentle murmur of their solidarity, Evelyn sensed that the mating bond was not merely an abstract destiny, but a palpable force, actively nurturing the wounded and reaffirming their collective strength. For Evelyn, the experience was a maelstrom of conflicting emotions. The adrenaline of the battle still coursed through her veins, leaving her both exhilarated and terrified of the uncertain future. She felt victorious, yet the specter of what lay ahead loomed like a dark cloud. In the midst of this inner turmoil, however, a deep certainty emerged. She belonged to this strange, tumultuous world, a world where the boundary between human and supernatural was blurred by the sheer force of destiny. As she continued to care for Ronan, Evelyn could not help but marvel at the transformation unfolding before her eyes, the subtle interplay of light and shadow around them, flickering from the campfire and intermingled with the soft glow of the moon, created an ethereal tableau. It was as if the heavens themselves had chosen this hour to bear witness to the sacred renewal of their bond. The radiant glow, reminiscent of a sacred flame, enveloped them in its embrace, soothing the raw edges of pain and igniting the quiet hope of redemption. In one particularly poignant moment, Ronan reached out with a hand that trembled from both injury and emotion, gently brushing a stray lock of hair from Evelyn's face. Their eyes met, and in that unspoken exchange, the depth of their connection was laid bare. There was an unyielding understanding between them, an acknowledgement of shared struggle, of battles fought in the depths of both the physical and the spiritual realms. The moment was charged with a delicate intensity, where every heartbeat resonated like a silent promise that they would endure, together. The process of healing was slow and tender. Over the following hours, as the pack kept a vigilant watch, Evelyn and Ronan shared whispered words and quiet reassurances. She recounted memories of past struggles and shared dreams of a future bathed in the light of hope. A future where the scars of conflict might one day be transformed into symbols of resilience. Ronan, in turn, expressed his gratitude for her presence, his voice low and edged with a vulnerability that belied his fierce exterior. The rhythmic cadence of their voices, mingled with the soft rustling of the night, created a soundtrack that seemed to stitch together the fragments of their wounded souls. In the gentle glow of dawn, as the first light of day broke over the horizon, the healing process reached a quiet crescendo. The once dormant pain in Ronan's body was gradually replaced by a steady warmth, a physical manifestation of the profound mating bond that now pulsed between them. It was a bond that defied conventional understanding, bridging the realms of pain and passion, logic and instinct. The sacred flame that had ignited in the aftermath of battle burned steadily now, casting away the lingering shadows and promising renewal. For Evelyn, the tumult of the past night gave way to a contemplative serenity. She stood by the side of the recovering Ronan, watching as the soft light of the morning revealed the true extent of their connection. A connection forged in the crucible of adversity, tempered by shared sacrifice, and destined to endure. Amid the gentle chirps of awakening birds and the subtle stirrings of the sleepy town, she recognized that her journey had irrevocably changed her. The fears that once held her captive had been replaced by a newfound resolve, a conviction that she was part of something much larger than herself. In that quiet, liminal space between night and day, Evelyn's heart swelled with the promise of tomorrow. The lingering traces of battle and the poignant moments of healing had woven together to create a tapestry rich with emotion and possibility. The mating bond was not just a mystical concept. It was a living, breathing reality, a force that would guide her and Ronan as they faced the challenges that lay ahead. With each passing moment, the connection deepened, etching its mark on their souls, and reaffirming that some destinies are written in the stars, unyielding and eternal. Thus, as the first rays of dawn broke through the darkness, Evelyn and Ronan embraced the fragile peace that had emerged from the chaos. In the tender silence that followed, the promise of a lasting, unbreakable bond shone brightly, a beacon of hope and redemption amid a world forever altered by the touch of the supernatural. In the soft afterglow of dawn, as the remnants of the night's battle faded into bittersweet memory, Black Hollow lay cloaked in a deceptive stillness. Evelyn and Ronan stood side by side at the edge of the clearing, their silhouettes etched against a horizon slowly brightening with the first light of day. In that quiet moment, every raw wound and every whispered promise mingled with the palpable residue of their shared destiny, a destiny forged in fire, blood, and the unyielding power of the mating bond. They recalled, in hushed recollections that echoed like ghosts through their minds, the turbulent events of the past hours. The savage clash between Ronan's loyal pack and the treacherous Elias had been as brutal as it was cathartic. Ronan's transformation, from man to lupine warrior and back again, had not only symbolized the fierce, raw essence of their supernatural heritage, but also the strength of a bond that could heal even the deepest scars. Evelyn's careful ministrations, her tender care amid chaos, had breathed life back into a hero battered by betrayal. And together, in the crucible of conflict, their souls had been irrevocably intertwined, each heartbeat a testament to a connection that defied time, reason, and mortal limitations. Yet, even as they savored the fragile peace and celebrated the victory that had saved a part of Black Hollow, an uneasy silence lingered in the air, a silence that spoke of secrets still buried beneath the town's seemingly placid surface. The rustic facades of the aging buildings and the serene mask of the forest belied the restless energy that pulsed beneath, for Black Hollow was a place where the truth always lurked just beyond the veil of normality, where legends were as real as the scars on Ronan's skin and as persistent as the whispering winds. As Evelyn surveyed the landscape, her thoughts raced, back over every clue, every fragmented whisper of lore and caution that had been shared with her. In the depths of her mind, she recalled the hushed warnings of the townsfolk, the evasive glances of Sheriff Mallister, and Lena Hawthorne's somber revelations of lost loyalty and dark prophecy. The triumph against Elias was a victory, yes, but it was but one chapter in a saga that had been centuries in the making. There were questions yet unanswered, threats yet unvanquished, a greater darkness that had been quietly coiling in the shadows, waiting for its moment to strike. Far off, beyond the perimeter of the clearing, the forest seemed to stir with an almost sentient urgency. The rustle of leaves and the distant, haunting echo of a wolf's howl, unlike any heard before, resonated through the air, a sound that chilled the soul and quickened the pulse. Evelyn's gaze lifted toward the tree line, where faint, shifting silhouettes moved like phantoms under the watchful eye of a hidden moon. In those undulating shapes, she sensed a presence, a malevolent force, or perhaps the restless spirit of a bygone era, observing her every move with an intelligence that was both unnerving and captivating. Ronan's eyes, still bright with the embers of the previous night's battle, narrowed as he scanned the horizon. "This isn't over," he murmured, his voice low and resolute, carrying the weight of unspoken memories and imminent perils. There was an edge of determination in his tone that belied the vulnerability he had shown just hours before. Yet, in his gaze, Evelyn could also see a flicker of uncertainty, a silent acknowledgement that the victory they had claimed was only temporary, a brief respite before the storm returned. As they walked slowly back toward the town, the atmosphere grew heavier, The familiar faces of Black Hollow's residents, now appearing more guarded and somber than ever, bore silent witness to the lingering dread. Hushed conversations floated. In the cool morning air, cryptic phrases about old debts, the awakening, and a darkness that feeds on hope. The town itself seemed to breathe a reluctant warning, its every crevice and cracked sidewalk a reminder that the balance between the natural and the supernatural was delicate, and that it could shatter with a single misstep. Evelyn's mind was a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. The elation of their hard-fought victory warred with a deep-seated anxiety about what lay ahead. The taste of triumph was bittersweet, laced with the knowledge that every step deeper into Black Hollow's mysteries brought her closer to an inevitable confrontation with forces far beyond her control. She felt the magnetic pull of fate, a pull that had drawn her into this world of shadows and ancient prophecies, and which now promised further trials as relentless as the night itself. In a narrow alley off the main street, bathed in the soft glow of a flickering street lamp, a single figure watched their passing, a figure whose presence was as elusive as it was foreboding. Cloaked in darkness and barely discernible, the observer seemed to meld with the night, an ominous reminder that not all threats had been vanquished. The echo of their silent vigil was carried on the wind, mingling with the distant roar of the forest, a subtle yet potent hint that the true battle was far from over. Inside Ronan's eyes, a storm of determination and dread swirled together, as if he could see the invisible threads of fate tightening around them. Evelyn, feeling that same mix of hope and apprehension, reached out and grasped his hand. In that quiet, fraught moment, the intensity of their mating bond surged forth, silent promise that they would face whatever darkness loomed ahead, together. The touch was tender yet resolute, a defiant spark of light amid the encroaching gloom. As the first hints of a new day began to break through the lingering shadows, the landscape of Black Hollow appeared transformed. The soft morning light, though, unable to chase away the night's residual fear entirely, cast long, uncertain shadows that hinted at hidden dangers. The wind carried a haunting melody, a distant, mournful cry that resonated with the echoes of the past and signaled the stirring of something new and ominous. In that charged silence, as the town awoke to a fragile day, Evelyn and Ronan stood on the precipice of an uncertain future. Their journey, marked by fierce battles, tender recoveries, and the unbreakable threads of fate, had reached a moment of poignant stillness, a moment that promised both redemption and the return of an Nefar, ancient malevolent force. The unresolved questions, the unspoken threats, and the flicker of a shadow in the periphery of vision all converged into one undeniable truth. The war between light and darkness was far from over. With hearts heavy with both hope and trepidation, they turned toward the town, a town that, beneath its calm facade, pulsed with secrets and the promise of further conflict. The scene faded into a lingering, breathless silence, leaving behind a single resonant note. Their story was not finished. The echoes of the forest, the distant howls, and the spectral silhouettes watching from the dark would continue to whisper of battles yet to come. And so, as the sun's first rays struggled to pierce the lingering veil of night, Evelyn and Ronan prepared themselves for the unknown, knowing that the final confrontation, the true reckoning with the forces that had haunted Black Hollow for generations, was still on the horizon. Their fate, intertwined with the town's eternal mystery, hung precariously between hope and despair, a cliffhanger that promised even greater trials and heart-stopping revelations in the chapters yet to be written.